Tim Pool got an actual Hamas defender to go on his show. And as a critic of Israel, I will break down why his conceptions of international law and resistance are just so stupid. But here's the clip.
Do you agree that Hamas is a terrorist organization?
No.
You are fucking retarded.
Okay.
Well, I'd like
Really?
to hear why isn't Hamas? Because everybody does consider
Because
them.
Hamas is an armed resistance group fighting against an occupying army.
How can you occupy your own country?
If Israel wasn't occupying the land of Palestine, creating and fomenting and fermenting in the soil of repression a radical extremist group, like you want to call it, a radical extremist, when you sideline, fracture, marginalize every possible peaceful chance to reform and have ownership and control over your resources, your land and labor, which is your given right according to international law, then you are left with the only option, which is to violently resist.
You think that
and
rape is
and
resistance?
let me ask you this. If you think that Hamas is a terrorist organization,
I know Hamas is a terrorist organization. I don't think
the Jewish
let him finish,
resistance in the Warsaw Ghetto, were they terrorists when they tried to
That is a good
uprise
point. That is
against
a good point.
their Nazi oppressors?
Okay, so
Because that's the
Were they-
same
yeah, were they-
exact
that is-
material
that is-
power
that is the
that is the
differential.
biggest false equivalency that
I
I've
don't
ever
know.
heard.
I mean,
really?
Tate, is that a bad false equivalency? I feel like he's unbiased because
All right, so let's just be clear. Everyone on that panel was out of their mind. The bearded guy was like, the person said, they're occupying Palestine. He was like, they can't occupy their own country, which is it's a Eugene Kontorovich argument for why the settlements are legal. If you want to look it up, you can. The counter arguments to that argument are much, much better than the argument themselves. It basically argues that because Israel declared independence first, due to the UPJ principle, they have claims over the whole previous administrative state, which was all of British Mandate Palestine. But that's for another day. This guy comparing October 7th to the Warsaw Ghetto, it's crazy. At least compare it to like maybe Nat Turner's rebellion. The Warsaw Ghetto was completely different. These people knew that they were going to die. They didn't touch a single German civilian. They didn't have any animosity towards them really, because they couldn't even get near them. They might have killed like a soldier or two, and tens of thousands of them died. At least thousands of the Jews. They were confined and trying to break out of certain death. It's not even close to a good comparison. Let's just go with this. So saying that Hamas is a resistance group is categorically incorrect. Not because it's not relevant to their overall goal and charter as an organization, but more so because terrorist groups, the label of terrorist takes precedent. The international law, so there was an additional protocol added in the 70s. It said your violent resistance, aka legal warfare, is allowed if you are occupied. You have the right to resist an occupier or a foreign domination. Now you are still bound by the laws of war. Let's remember, when is war allowed? Self-defense or when it's sanctioned by the UN, or right to resist. But as soon as you break international law, you are now a terrorist, right? And terrorism, we can all agree, is bad. But in the context of this conflict, I can say terrorism is bad, therefore we should solve the conflict. You can't say terrorism is the way to solve the conflict. Because unless you are highly immoral. And by the way, the people that Hamas killed on October 7th were more liberal. This idea that this had anything to do with resistance or military targets is absurd. If anything, they were killing the people in Israel that were advocating for them, which is completely the opposite of something like maybe Nat Turner's rebellion or the Warsaw Ghetto. Even though Warsaw Ghetto is not applicable, that was self-defense, immediate self-defense, which is also authorized under the UN. Nat Turner's rebellion went after white people. Right, because they were enslaved by white people. They went after slavers. So, I mean, it's all terrorism, is what I'm trying to say. So saying Hamas is not a terrorist group is simply wrong if you value international law. The pro-Palestinian side is supposed to be the staunch advocates of international law, which means, accepting Israel as a political reality, accepting the reality that Hamas is a terrorist group. Accepting the reality that Hamas as a terrorist group did, in a way, sabotage the Oslo peace process, even though settlements by Rabin's assassination and the forthcoming turn to the right that they had with Netanyahu, that was most of it. That was probably 80, 90% of the sabotaging of the peace process, even though Rabin was never ready to acknowledge the atrocities that Israel had committed towards Palestinians, right? But that's the basic gist here. Comparing Hamas to Jews in the Holocaust is absurd. Hamas does not represent the majority of opinion of the Palestinian people. They do not want a two-state solution. They are not followers of international law, even if you strip out the terrorism, right? They just don't oppose the sovereign. They oppose the sovereign state of Israel, which is an impediment to peace. And most of the Palestinians do not. Most of the Palestinians, 2/3 of Gazans, would be okay being resettled outside of Israel. 1/10 of Palestinians would be fine not returning to Israel. They simply want recognition. This is something that what's his name? Gideon Levy talks about. He's like, this is more about humiliation than it is about land. The Gazans would have been fine. The Palestinians probably were fine with what they were proposed with in 2008 as far as land, water, security, all that stuff. East Jerusalem, as far as all that goes. The only thing that they were not offered is recognition that they had been screwed over for 80 years and humiliated. That is what they want, right? So this guy is, of course, wrong. Let's listen to a little bit more of it right here. Let's play this.
Jewish ghetto and you're fighting against the Nazis, you would consider them a hero today.
To be fair, like they were targeting soldiers, where with Hamas, it's more deliberate attacks on civilians.
They did attack civilians. They did kill indiscriminately. They made rudimentary makeshift weapons, which were imprecise. They marshaled any capabilities that they could to violently resist their own annihilation, which they knew. And did they think that was going to be successful for them? Of course not. They knew that they were going to die. They knew that the Nazis were going to. So what was the point of that violence? Why didn't they just lay down and die for the Nazis? If that's your argument,
okay,
why wouldn't they just do that?
In your scenario here,
it's not my scenario.
The Nazis are Israel, and
yes.
The Jews are Hamas.
Yes.
Okay.
In World War II.
Hold on. Now, did the Jews in Warsaw occupy Germany, march into Germany and murder and rape a bunch of people? Did they set people on fire?
No, and neither did Hamas.
No. Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. You're repeating lies.
Did you watch the footage on October 7th?
I did. Did you see it? Did you see when you saw hang gliders parasailing over an apartheid wall? When you saw bulldozers bulldozing through an apartheid wall? Did you think that was the Wehrmacht?
When you heard the soldier
to
calling
destroy Israel, are you fucking out of your mind?
When you heard the terrorist calling his parents like, "I killed 10 Jews! I killed 10 Jews!" That's resistance. Have you watched the documentary?
What are you talking about? Most of the people that were.
All right, he was going to end there by saying most of the people that were killed on October 7th were killed by the IDF, I believe, which is irrelevant, right? It was clearly a terrorist attack. We have no proven, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, proven cases of sexual violence. The burning babies in ovens, obviously untrue. But we know that they did attack the festival in a clearly terroristic way. This is what mattered. And he completely lied about the Warsaw Ghetto, right? They did not kill German civilians or like take pride in killing German civilians. There's no evidence for that at all. So saying that they have the right to do this is absolutely crazy. And everyone on that panel is crazy too, by even giving credence to his arguments, by, on the other side, not having an inability to criticize Israel for being the impetus to all of this. Like, I believe fully that Israel should take responsibility for being what created Hamas. The Palestinians probably reluctantly, they won by a plurality, not a majority, voted in Hamas because they thought the opposition would be too weak. They had just seen the peace process fall apart before their eyes in the most peaceful climate, the conflict they've ever seen in the 90s. They were like, we're done with this. We're putting terrorism back on the table as a negotiating chip. And they elected in Hamas, who has different politics from them, right? Unwilling to recognize Israel, to do that. And not to mention, Netanyahu, by multiple corroborating sources at a Likud faction meeting in 2019, said that his policy of letting Qatari cash flow into Hamas every month was, you should support that if you do not support a Palestinian state. He wanted this. The Likud party wants this. Said the 73% of young Israelis between the ages of 18 and 24 wanted this. This is what they want. Because now they have the political agency, the political power to vote in the Knesset what was just voted. That there will never be a Palestinian state, that the West Bank is the religious, historical, and lawful land of Israel, right? All these things they literally voted on. And it's absurd. But you don't argue against that by saying that Hamas is not a terrorist group. There's no evidence for that. You can say it's useless to call Hamas immoral because this whole conflict is immoral. You can't call Nat Turner's rebellion immoral without the context of slavery being immoral. I mean, you have to make peace with the people that you dislike. It's the moral of the story. You can't be justifying this one group and saying that you should like them because they aren't terrorists. But that's pretty much it.